I am here with Gangsta Jabs. Hey man, you want to say what's up?
Yeah, let's say what's up.
Say what's up.
Yep. Anyway, so let's compare the stats of Orion and Stalker.
So Orion's got, I don't know the exact number, but you can correct me. It's got 104,000 max HP at base, right? But Stalker has 113,000, so it's slightly more. But it goes down to, what did you say, 90 or 98?
85,000.
90 something?
85,000.
85,000 when it's using the ability. In terms of stats, yeah, I think generally speaking, Orion wins out, even though Stalker has more base HP. It's got slightly more speed, 1k PH. You won't really feel the difference, but still, it has constant, HP, so it's not like you have to worry about weakening yourself to anything.
Exactly.
And the ability duration is longer. The ability cooldown is also longer, but there's like a 2-second window between marks. I think the main differences would have to come down to like what the specifics of the ability are and what makes one ability overall better than the other. Because like we were saying before, Orion is very, very good on paper, like almost too good. When it first came out and I was using it on the test server, it was ridiculous. And it wipes out bots very quickly. So, same with Stalker, but it was a little bit much, and it was kind of a lot for me to take in. But it's really not all that it seems like it would be. Partially because, in my experience, the mark transfer is super buggy. Not everyone has that problem. I don't know if it's just me, but even if it's not, you can't count on the fact that there's going to be multiple people next to each other. In fact, about half the time there isn't. So most of the time, it's basically like an overheat, where it's like it applies only to the specific mech, which is nice for the support class that Orion is, as opposed to an attacker, because that means that other weapons from your teammates will also deal more damage, and that's good.
Yeah.
In terms of
but he's not.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he's not like too great against clumps of enemies either, because you have to kill one enemy and then the other enemy gets marked and then you can kill them.
Yeah, and you have to make sure that you kill them in the correct sequence too, in order to get the best out of it.
Exactly.
Stalker is definitely a lot easier to use in that it just boosts its weapon damage, and that's just easier to deal with. Anything that comes out of your weapons, that is dealing more damage, and it's going to apply to any and all enemies, which makes it particularly good for something like bot farming, where you use minimal amounts of ammo to kill each enemy, meaning that you're not relying on a transfer every 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Stalker, all you do is just run around, press the ability, and fire. With Orion, you have to you have like a much different play style. Like you hide and then you peek out, hit the mark, and then go hide again, and then peek out.
And maybe you kill them, maybe you don't, maybe you just let them, take damage from other people. It does suit the support role much more than Stalker would, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit too much on the high damage side for a support mech, but it's just my opinion.
Yeah, and it's the hardest part about the Orion is that is preventing the enemy from shooting you while you're marking them. Because to mark them, you have to expose yourself. And in that time, it's easy to just get one shot by EMs or them to kill you. So you have to be super good at wall peeking. It's like a skill to peek out a bit, fire the mark, and then hide back again. So that's also difficult. And then it's also super difficult to hit someone with the mark. Nowadays, with the EMs, everybody's hiding and they're scared to get sniped by the EM, so it's almost impossible to hit anyone with the mark. And with Surge and Tengu having the stealth, you can't even mark them. And then everyone's using Panther, and Panther completely counters Orion's mark.
Yeah.
So even though the mark does so much, like it does slow, it does this massive damage boost against skilled players. It's super hard to capitalize on that since you barely even hit them half the time.
Yep.
And Orion's supposed to be a strong support mech, but if you can't hit the enemy with the mark, then how are you supposed to support your team?
I think it's good to, you choose a target and you prioritize a specific target. You can't just utilize your ability on anyone that dares to oppose you and anyone that, you want to use your ability on. It's not quite that simple. You kind of have to, choose your mark, take your shot, and like you said before, sometimes you're the one that shoots at them, sometimes you're not. But you can help your team by weakening enemies at pretty much any distance. One thing that you were talking about missing the mark, that I do want to mention is that it does depend on the trajectory of the enemy, mostly due to their speed. If you get a fast mech, so even something like a cheetah, if it's moving sideways while you're trying to mark it, you quite simply won't hit it because it's too fast. It's too
really. I found that
this is true.
You can lock on to them.
You can lock on to them, but
time.
Your turning power is not as strong as the speed that the mech can move. So it is fairly easy to run sideways and avoid a hunter's mark. You can kind of lead your target, but like if you're shooting at them straight on, you're just gonna miss. The faster the target, the harder it is going to be for you to hit them. But that also does bring us, because you were talking about the being careful to not take damage, right? Yeah. That is the main difference that I think between Orion and Stalker is Orion's ability to, or not Orion, but Stalker's ability to self-heal. I think that's the main part of Stalker. The damage boost helps it to get more kills, but I think the main reason people use Stalker is to farm their especially bots. Like I was saying before, how bots are really easy to kill, and you can, kill them quickly with extra damage with minimal ammo. You can get all of your HP back in very short amount of time. And then you can go back in and not have to be, not necessarily careless, but you don't have to worry about, okay, I can't risk this, like you can take risks and get the rewards for risking yourself because you can afford to.
Yeah, you can pretty much trade damage with almost every weapon in the game. Like you can pretty much just stand in the open, get back damage on them with the disc launchers, and you'll probably out DPS them. With Orion, you can only do that when you mark them. If you don't mark them, then you're gonna get wrecked.
I feel the need to know that I don't encourage people to stand out in the open and try to shoot people.
Yeah. And then one thing also is that Stalker is a solo mech. Orion is a team mech. Orion requires you to have a team that knows what it's doing. Like you can center your whole strategy around Orion. Like you can play super passive, right? Like maybe a team deathmatch where it's a 0-0 game, right? And what you can just do is you can just keep spamming your mark while peeking, and then once you hit someone with your mark, you have your whole team focus fire on that mech, and you'll get a kill, and it'll become 1-0. And every time you hit an enemy, it's pretty much a guaranteed kill for your team, while the other team is struggling to kill you. So if you have a team that focuses on the mark, like most of my teammates, whenever I mark them, none of them have any idea to focus on that mech. But if you have a team that focuses on the mech that you mark, then you can have a super strong strategy, and you can.
Yes.
And also Orion, Orion really benefits from teammates who are passive. If your teammates are freaking just going around dying, then it's not gonna benefit from that passive playstyle and being able to chip one person down at a time. So
Yes.
it benefits from focus firing.
So yeah, on that, I think overall, I would consider Orion to be um, the better mech versus other players. Although Stalker is obviously really good, it's got the extra damage. You do take a little bit more damage, which, you know, does suck against other players who actually know when and how to hit you. But particularly just the fact that you can't farm your HP back. So any damage that you take is more or less permanent. If it's a full squad v squad, you're not going to be able to bank on getting 4 or 5 kills in a row to get your HP back. So you're going to need to play passive, and Orion is, as you said, just a little bit better at that than Stalker is.
Yeah. And Orion isn't a very great solo mech. Like, you do not want to be using Orion in 1v1s because you're gonna get wrecked.
Yeah. Or even
avoid your mark.
Yeah, or even just like solo with a bunch of bots, because the bots just don't know. They don't know to kill people who are marked. They'll just do whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to use Orion too much in a one-man show, but it's still useful. It's still better than a lot of other options out there, if you ask me. But
yeah,
not quite as, if you're looking for like the best of the best. It really does depend on what you're doing. If you're playing like tournament and you know that you're probably going to get a bunch of like full squads, then yeah, you probably want Orion in your hangar. Otherwise, you're probably going to want Stalker. Like, you could very easily use both, and I know that a lot of people do.
Yeah, if you use Stalker for mortars, then Orion is the perfect disc mech because Orion's like a really good disc mech. Oh, and if your Stalker is used up, then you can use him.
Although, I think it is worth mentioning, if you don't have Stalker, or if you just don't like Stalker for whatever reason, and you really like to use Orion as a one-man show mech, it is a lot better if you use Arc Torrents on it.
Oh yeah, Arc Torrents Orion is like the bot-killing machine.
Exactly. That's where you get the like huge team wipes, because then, especially against bots who are all spawning in like the same place and just being dumb, you just get transfer after transfer, and you're weakening the next mech in line with your chain weapon. So it eats through mechs like crazy, more than Stalker can.
So yeah, or Stalker has the advantage with the better implants, and then if Orion gets nerfed, it's gonna be even worse. And if it gets buffed,
oh yeah, that actually brings us to what I wanted to talk about. Okay. Because there's the rebalance coming, right? So I would kind of be interested in brainstorming. Maybe for the sake of argument, we could, think about a buff scenario too. But I kind of want to know, what type of nerf do you think would be necessary for Orion to be kind of knocked off its place and just become the sort of thing that you really just, like, you wouldn't even think about using it over Stalker?
I think it's HP, because he should not have 150k HP with the legendary pilot. That's what makes him broken. So if he had, let's say he had the health of like a panther or something, he would be garbage. No one would use Orion. So the health would really hurt Orion, and movement speed would also really hurt Orion, because Orion is actually surprisingly good against mortars. Like, it's easy to dodge those mortars, and if he had like the speed of a panther or something, that would hurt.
I suppose that's true. I was about to say that a speed nerf on Orion wouldn't be much of a bad idea, but it is true. I'm glad that you mentioned it. It is true that Orion is very close to that danger threshold speed, where if you're slower than a specific speed, then mortars are going to basically guaranteed kill you. I'd say anything over 20 kph could get you away from mortars from any reasonable distance.
And if they like nerf like Orion's damage boost, I don't think it would affect Orion much. Like if they nerf the
That's true.
damage boost to like 125, I don't think anyone's tripping. But if they made it to
Hmm.
like drastic to like 75 or under 100, okay, that would hurt. But the damage boost is already overkill.
I think just making it a straight up, anyone with the mark takes back damage from any angle. I think that alone is more than enough to make Orion a good mech. And
Exactly.
since its perk is not necessarily dealing 150% extra damage, it's dealing 50% damage on top of guaranteed back damage. Since
Exactly.
since the guaranteed back damage is like a solidified part of Orion, I don't think that's ever going to go away. So I'm very, very certain that damage boost is fixed and it's not going to go below that. And that's good because I don't think it'll be that bad even if they did that. For the sake of argument, because we don't know if it's going to get a nerf or a buff, for the sake of argument, if it were to get a buff, what do you think is the most realistic thing that would happen to it? I would say probably HP and speed are the two primary things that they tend to buff in terms of like Mech Arena history.
I think what the most useful buff would be as an Orion player is making the mark travel faster. If you can freaking have a mark that travels like just a bit faster, you can hit way more enemies and you can have way more precision with the mark. Like the mark from like long range takes like at least 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's like a sniper versus RPG. You really just can't rely on it long range.
Exactly. It's like a missile rack firing at long range. I mean, you'll hit them
Exactly.
at some time, but usually they can just dodge it or something.
I doubt that they'd buff the damage, but like maybe. Even if they did though, it's already like we talked about, like so overkill that more damage or less damage would do basically nothing.
Or they could increase the slow duration. Maybe just make that could maybe help. It could be helpful.
Yes. Yes. Like maybe 5 seconds as opposed to three. That'd be kind of
Oh
nice.
yeah.
I do think one of the major yeah, I do think one of the major things that makes Orion generally less useful is the fact that it can't afford to expose itself, even though it's got reasonable amounts of HP. It can't protect itself in any way. The only thing it can do is hope to kill the enemy faster than they can kill
Uh-huh.
you. And there's obviously going to be a point where that's not going to happen because you're just too low on HP and there's no way to get it
Uh-huh.
back unless you have MD teammates, but that's not something you can rely on
Uh-huh.
really. Um, Buffing the HP would be the most reasonable and most playerium thing to do. I would assume because that's typically what happens. Buff is usually just to the HP, and if it's a really bad thing, then maybe the HP and the speed,
Uh-huh.
and that's pretty much it.
What if you like rebalanced him reduce the mark damage by 30%, but also increase the stasis by like 2 seconds? That would make him more
That would make him a lot more support. Yes, I would like
exactly.
that.
I would be hyped if they do that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that would probably be like the best case scenario
Yeah,
because
yeah.
then they're increasing the things that make it more of a support thing, decreasing the things that make it less of a support thing. Thank you for your time. I'm glad we had this
Yeah.
conversation. It was a lot of fun. Um,
Yeah, I'm honored to be on the channel. It's pretty dope.
yeah. Anybody who's not familiar with this guy, his channel name is Gangsta Jabs.
There you
I'll
go.
have it linked in the description. I got it linked other places, probably, maybe, who knows. But thank you guys for watching. Take care.